people have to sacrifice a lot to get what they need to do, to get to where they've gotten. There is no easy way. And a lot of times, like, some people leave the door open. They leave the back door open, and a lot of bad shit slips in through the cracks.
I put my phone on, do not disturb. Don't wanna talk, I don't wanna hear a word.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 12th episode of the Conscious Cast with your boy Cal and your boy Cole.
Yes.
And today we're going to be talking about perseverance, alright? At least just in this beginning segment. And as always, we will see where the fuck it takes us.
Yeah.
So, earlier this week, my boy Cole was butt-ass naked in the shower, doing his normal thing. And he had an amazing thought.
Yeah, so I was thinking about it, and, a lot of good thoughts appear in the shower. And, something recent happened that is, something scary. And like on our episode about fear, it's good to have it sometimes because it's a good reality check. And, sometimes it takes a tragedy to really put in perspective, like a near-death experience or something horrifying or terrible, to really check to see how much value something has. Like, your life has value. And I'm going to just start this off by saying, for anyone out there that's, might be going through a rough time or something really bad has happened, and, people die around you, or someone gets severely injured or something bad happens. There will always be bad things that happen, and that's why this episode is about perseverance, because it is our responsibility to achieve our dreams for those who died trying along the way to get theirs. And that's where I'm starting this episode out on. And I want to elaborate on that by saying that, like I said this in previous podcasts, that you should never let anyone make your dreams seem like they're less than what you believe them to be. And because our lives are so precious, it's not because something lasts that makes it beautiful. It's because it's fleeting that gives it its meaning. And your dreams, what you truly want in your soul, what you believe your purpose is, not what other people tell you your purpose is, what you believe your purpose is, what you truly want to do in your life, that is what gives it meaning. That is what makes your life beautiful. And you can never let anyone get in the way of that. And you need to persevere, because there will always be challenges. There will always be terrible things that happen in your life. No matter what form they take, you get bullied. Somebody gets, God forbid, someone gets killed. Death happens. Like, if you fall on hard times financially, you get depressed. Some bad shit will always happen. But perseverance is key. And we're filming this in my room right now. And you can't see it because it's out of frame. But I have this big tapestry of this Japanese symbol that says destroy right above my fucking room. I'm going to pan over right here. But yeah, I keep this directly above my bed for one reason alone. Not only does it look fucking cool, it means something to me. And I can look at this symbol. I wake up next to the symbol every day. And it's a constant reminder to, persevere. To destroy all of the bad things that get in my way. Now, this is a very active and aggressive school of mind, or school of thought to, perseverance. But, I pull a lot of different sources of wisdom to, sharpen my point of view. And that's another thing, I have a cork board behind the camera that, is designed to keep me accountable. It's a fucking bulletin board, so I can put up my assignments and problems up there, so I can wake up every day in the morning, and just to get out of my room, I have to look at them. And this is all what's helping me, number one, stay organized, like we talked about, and manage my time in the last episode, but also to keep me accountable and persevere. So whatever bullshit gets in my way, I have the board to hold me accountable, and I have that symbol to destroy whatever bad things get in my way. It's a symbol of strength for me. I can look at that, and I can remember what I'm doing. And you know, like I said, this is a more aggressive point of view. It's more active. You can also do this in the passive. And I feel like Cal, you're the perfect person to talk about passive perseverance as opposed to actively aggressing against your difficulty.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I like with you, like it's definitely something I've noticed like throughout these like Conscious Cast episodes, like we share a lot of like the same type of thoughts, but it's definitely interesting because you're, like you said, you're more aggressive, you're more about action, right? And like more so for me, like in order to see results, like I'm more so I'm more of like that being type of guy, like the passive, right? And I let that, but you also do that as well, you know, like, but it's obvious it's different for everyone, right? But in the end, we get the same result, which is, you know, success. Obviously, we're not successful all the time, but even those failures you can turn to a success because you can learn from them.
Yeah,
know?
that's the most important thing too.
Yeah.
Like bad shit will happen. You know, like I saw this quote on Instagram or something a while ago, and it's like mistakes are often lessons learned too late, and you need to remember to learn from everything.
Yeah.
There is something to take away from everything, even if something is out of your control that checks your reality. There is a lesson in it, and that must be remembered. But continue.
No, definitely, and yeah, it's like when you look back in the past and like you look to the future. I was watching this Instagram story, and the guy said, I mean, this is obviously paraphrasing, but he said, if someone tells you you're worthless, that's an illusion, because even if you have no money in your bank account, you have like $0 to your name. If you have an idea that's worth billions, you're worth billions, right? And so like that kind of school of thought and that kind of like way of thinking is incredible for perseverance, right?
Yeah.
Because every moment is an opportunity to change your life,
Absolutely.
right? And whether you look at that as whether you look to the future and you see absolutely no opportunity, right? Because you have no resources, just remember that every single moment of your life, you can change the way you respond to certain situations, right? And you can change how you kind of react and you become proactive, right? And through that, we can see that we have control to some extent, right?
Yeah.
And it's very tough because, like, we talked about this in the environment episode, right? If you're kind of in an environment where, like, people around you are just negative, right?
Yeah.
People around you are just, maybe like, not putting you down, but bringing you down to a lower state of mind where you're doing, like, not going to say bad things, but bad things, you know? Like,
Let me add on to that real quick. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm going to try and say it how I'm thinking you're saying it. But they're like your circle, you know, not, you know, bringing you down to a lesser standard. They're speaking to that negative voice in your mind, the voice that tells you to quit.
Yeah.
They, you know, you got people around you, you know, tell you not to work as hard, take it easy. You can't, you know, settle into the comfort zone. And as we know, no growth happens outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
So you need to check. You need to check the voice. You either have to clear up your peanut gallery, or just check the voice in your head.
Yeah. And it's tough because unless you have that awareness, right, you may go your entire life of thinking that you're worthless, right?
Yes.
And and I've been thinking about this a lot, like, and I've told you about this. Just literally, your existence is I mean, we are so desensitized to this. Like, our literal existence in this world right now as organisms is like 1 in 400 trillion, right? Think about that. That's way less chances than winning the lottery, right? But we're living that reality right now. But we're just so used to this reality, like you said, we take things for granted, right? We don't know what we have, right? This breath that goes in and out, that in itself alone is worth, right? And so, don't get me wrong, like, everyone has hardships. Everyone has shit they're dealing with, right? Like, just today, I felt suffering, right? And it happens every now and then, you know? But I'm aware that I'll go back up to that normal state of, like, how I normally am, you know, optimistic, passionate, want growth, you know? And I'm motivated, disciplined, like, all these type of stuff that we have developed over time. But as we kind of take a step back and we maybe not feel grateful, but we recognize what we have, right? Because a lot of times, like, and I've noticed this before. Like I try and force myself to be grateful, but
Yeah.
you know that's disingenuous. That's
Yes.
inauthentic. You know, but I'm just trying to keep it real. Like as long as you recognize that and you keep that in the back of your mind, like every single day when you are trying to like, you constantly want things, right? And then like through that want, you lack things because you don't have it. You can like be like, okay, look at all that I do have, right? Let's just say my life situation in terms of this, system, matrix, whatever you want to call it, isn't the best. You can, right, and just let go of your mind,
Yes.
right? Because
Oh,
that
God,
is the
yes.
only thing that is telling you that you're worthless,
Yeah.
right? And if you can connect with that awareness and really clean up your environment, and I know it's tough because you may be stuck in a room with like 5 or 6 more siblings. Maybe you have roommates that are bad, or you just have bad habits or behaviors that pull you into negative states of mind.
Mhm.
But if you can go within yourself, and really connect with who you are, that unchanging part of yourself, beyond thoughts, beyond self-images, beyond beliefs, right? It will flow through to that dream that you really want, right?
Yeah.
And have been always wanting, regardless of external factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like everything Cal said is fucking right.
Yeah.
And like going back to the whole cleaning up your environment thing, because I'm kind of bringing that, I'm using that as the passive to transition into the active, and you really need to first take some time with yourself to realize what am I doing wrong. You need to realize the fallacy in your tapestry, rather. You need to find not the silver lining, but the malignant thread, and pull it out at the root. But you first have to take a step back. You have to look at the bigger picture in order to see its minute detail. And a thing about that is, going back to the little symbol on my wall thing. It's another source of external wisdom is the video game Doom, the recent 2016 remake in Doom Eternal. Very I love those games, but it's not because there's it's fun to play and fuck around within the game because it's just a good game.
Yeah.
But the theming in it is rather the way I see it is I take the main character as kind of a kind of a role model, for lack of a better term. It's the Doomslayer. He is this Marine that was bestowed this power, used to fight the forces of hell. He went on a crusade. The demons tell stories and fear about the Slayer that has come to punish them. And it's no, I'm not saying go out and fucking enact violent acts towards people, but the whole tagline of the game is rip and tear. And I'll go into the gym, and that's my line. The prayer, of the Slayer's prayer, as I've kind of invented, but it's bathe your hands in demon blood and rip and tear until it is done. And that's I have that in my mind. That's not from the game. I mean, the rip and tear until it is done thing, but they have their different kind of biblical-esque scriptures that they open and close the games with. But I take that line and I look at, I see my weaknesses and my struggles, and I kind of, for lack of a better term, I demonize them. I look at them in my mind as harmful aggressors, and cancerous weeds that need to be ripped out of the garden so that there may be growth. And it's that's just because of the way I kind of organize my mind.
It works, right?
Yeah, but it's very much I doubt a lot of people can really think that way, without, because it's just the way I've been conditioned mentally and relatively physically as well, to the point where it's pain doesn't really, I don't allow myself to hurt necessarily because I'm too busy looking past it, for lack of a better term. It's this may sting now, but there's so much I can learn here in this moment. I'm the leg day cane is in full fucking operation because I know I beat my body to shit in the gym, and I know tomorrow I'll be stronger because of it. And I can detach myself from these kind of painful moments and look at them as a learning opportunity. I can take myself out of my own body and kind of look at what I'm at, what's actually the problem, and it will help me get through it. But also, there have been times where I probably should have felt, and I didn't, and because I was too preoccupied with getting past it. I was too busy looking forward and not living in the moment. And now, I look back on it and I realize my mistake. It's become so easy for me to detach that I forgot kind of how to feel, for lack of a better term, in certain moments. So I need to, I need to allow myself to feel more, because that pain, no matter how much it hurts, you need to feel it. We're all the same.
Gotta feel the heal.
Yeah. And so it got out in other ways, but healthier ways. It's kind of the residual pain kind of fed the fire that I take into the gym, but that should be avoided, because there's unhealthy ways to push through shit, and then there's the proper way.
Yeah.
But sometimes sometimes you need to be a little unhealthy before you realize you gotta clean it up.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you get knocked down, you get back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
That perseverance that you have comes from an intuitive force sometimes. No, it does come from an intuitive force.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say a thought, like an epiphany.
Yeah.
It's like you just said, it's like you're unhealthy, right? You're unaware that you're unhealthy, right? And then maybe you check like the label on the back of the box and you see like what the fuck is in it, and you're like, then that information helps you realize like, oh shit, I've been eating like 10 of these a day, right? And I'm fat. Like they just realize they're fat. I'm unhealthy, right? And then that translates to change, and that change allows them. It does lead to change, but that realization leads to action, right? And that action leads to change, right? And so, like, through perseverance, it sometimes comes up randomly, but also it can happen through, like, your own behaviors and habits, right? And if you can kind of, like, foster that within your life on a daily basis, because, like, you're not going to win every time, right? You're not always going to get what you want, right? Like, reality check, like, we can't control the reality out there, like, 100% of the time. Probably like less than 1% of the time we can control it, and if we can realize that in itself, and then kind of building on top of that, like once we finally get that 100% result that we wanted, it can be fully satisfactory.
Yeah.
And we did not give up. No, don't kill him, don't kill him.
Dude, I can't stand these bugs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're fucking everywhere in my room because of this door.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Damn, tough.
Slip in through the cracks.
Damn.
We'll segue that. We'll leave this in. About letting bad shit slip in through the cracks.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of... Like, we were watching Spider-Man 2 in the other room. And a lot of that movie, like, the big theme about that movie is sacrifice. It is so apparent. Because it's like, Peter is there. He's missing out on, his love with Mary Jane, his, friendship with, Harry Osborn, his fucking schoolwork at Empire State University, his taking care of his Aunt May with his, and his fucking, can't pay his rent because he's sacrificing his life as Peter Parker to do better stuff as Spider-Man. And there was a big monologue that literally we just, I watched before fucking Cal showed up at the house to record. And it was like, Spider-Man sacrifices his dreams in that movie so that way other people can. So that way other people have, the ability, they can thrive. They can have someone to look up to. Aunt May said in that movie, people love heroes. They look up to them. They tell their story. They tell stories about how they waited in line for hours just to catch a glimpse of one of them. It's like, and I'm not saying you have to be a hero, but there is admiration. in that. But the key part of that is great people have to sacrifice. I'm trying to kill the ants in my room, but a lot of great people have to sacrifice a lot to get what they need to do. You know, to get to where they've gotten. You know, there is no easy way, and a lot of times, like, some people leave the door open. They leave the back door open, and a lot of bad shit slips in through the cracks.
Yeah.
You know,
Not aware it's open.
yeah. You gotta keep. I'm not saying you gotta watch what doors you walk through, but you do.
Yeah, you do.
You know, and that's a footnote thing where it's like perseverance is a lot about sacrifice. You know, there's no easy way. You have to feel the pain. You have to feel the heal, like Cal says, but the pain is there to remind you that, you know, this may hurt. This may hurt a lot, but you're still alive. And sometimes, for other people, you know, the people that you love, sometimes you have to hurt a little more, so that way you can still have them in your life, you know.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, that's another environment thing. You know, you leave the door open. You leave the club door open. People slip in past the bouncer, and then you got a bunch of party crashers on your pleasure cruise, and they're fucking up everything. And those could either be bad thoughts, bad people, just random loose ends that you've left untied. You know, it's a cynical saying, but it has a lining of truth. You know, there's always something that's, you know, waiting to. There's always, you know, fuck. I lost it, but I got it now. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. There's, you know, bad shit waiting. There are vampires outside the door waiting for you to let them in. And once they're in, you can't fucking get rid of them. You know, there's always one, you know, there's one cockroach or termite that lets in the colony.
Just one cock.
Yeah. One cockroach that lets in the whole colony. But you have to worry about what's slipping into the cracks, and also you have to remember what you need to sacrifice in order to clean up the house that the termites are eating. You know, sometimes you gotta lose that addition you put on it or whatever because the mites have consumed it. You know, sometimes you gotta cut off the diseased limb so it doesn't poison the rest of the body. You know, sometimes that's a person in your life. Sometimes that's, you know, a vice. Or sometimes that's something you like to do. But you have to sacrifice your time for the stuff that you need to do.
Definitely. And, like, this quote that on Instagram that, like, it's like one of those things you read and you're like, shit, man. like you know, it's like, like you intuitively recognize it and you're like, oh, fuck, that's good. And it's like you gotta let go of the good things you want to let in the real things you need. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's like, I was like, damn. You know, it's once again going against, like, what you want versus you need. And, like, a big thing with perseverance and, like, really coming through to allow yourself maybe to bounce back, to stay on track, to keep on going for that goal, and, you know, allowing that goal to manifest is, you know, like, sacrifice, right? Like, literally what you just said. And, you know, whether that be being in your dorm room, right, working on an assignment rather than going partying out with the boys, right? And, like, partying out with the boys, you know, like, taking a chill pill, you know, is obviously awesome, you know, like, and
it's got to get done.
But, you know,
it's almost as necessary as the working.
Definitely.
But you can't eat your dessert before you finish the meal.
Yeah, like you gotta get through that meal to get to the delicious dessert.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta eat your fucking Brussels sprouts before you can have that cupcake.
Yeah, exactly, right.
You know,
and it's not always gonna be. Yeah, and the Brussels sprouts are bland, right? You know, they're not the most tasty, but what do you know? They have the best benefits on your body, right? Yeah. And then you get that sweet, sweet reward, right? I'm not saying like the reward's bad for your body or anything, but just kind of using that Brussels sprouts as an analogy. it's like, obviously no one wants to ever write a fucking essay, alright? Like, no, like this guy hates writing essays, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, you gotta get
I
through
could have
that
a
shit.
whole episode of the School of Hard Knocks just for how much I fucking hate essays.
Well, that'll be up one day.
I'll squeeze it in somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
But, yeah.
But nah, it's a big part of bouncing back, sacrificing the good things you want, right? And really doing what you need to do, right? To stay on track, to stay in the here and now, while being present, stress-free. And although in the back of your mind, you may feel this force, be like, shit, I want to go out right now, right? Do not let that take you over, because you know if you go out and you go, you know it's a form of procrastination, right? You're putting that shit off and doing it later. But as soon as you do it later, that's the same thought is going to pop out, you know? And this is a big thing, too, that, you know, I might as well mention now because it's related to this so much. I remember back in, like, junior year of high school, I had, and this is really in anybody's life, like, I had a shit ton of, like, exams, right? I had my, like driver's license and all this type of stuff, and I was like, alright, once I get past all this, this is just the most vivid memory I have in relation to this idea. I was like, once I get past all this shit, we talked about this, like, everything out there will be good. Like, I'll be so happy, I'll be so fulfilled, right? And I did all that shit, and I was like, for a little bit of time, I was like, yeah, this is awesome, right? But what do you know? Life is spontaneous. New obstacles, new events, emotions are constantly flowing through us, and that idea that I had back then, it only lasted for so long.
Yeah.
And this goes by saying, like, that you have to dive within yourself, right? You have to develop the skills and the habits rather than that imaginary vision into the future that is merely an illusion, right? In a sense, right? It's just you looking into the future and hoping that is what happens, right?
Yeah.
But most times than not, if you have a behavior of procrastination and you're not disciplined enough to sit down and do the fucking work that needs to be done, and don't get me wrong, it's okay to do shit like with your boys, but you got to know when it's the right time, with the right amount, and just in the right manner.
Yeah, you have to really check yourself. You know, you gotta have that responsibility to yourself. That's a lot of getting through shit. You know, their life is constant challenges, and this is fucking two college students who haven't, have a lot of experience in, like, the real world. And that's the Matrix. That's another bullshit thing a lot of people tell you about. Fucking putting the cane down for this one. The real world is the here and now.
Yeah. Oh my god, yeah.
Everybody talks about, it's high school. They will beat that fucking stick over your head until you don't even know where the hell you are anymore.
Join the workforce, bud.
You're gonna go, this late work not gonna fly in the real world. Let me tell you something about the real world. How about you shut the fuck up about the real world? The real world right now is what you're beating me with this club of the future. It doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What matters is you. Yeah. You now. That's what matters. Yeah. You in the here and now. Not us talking to you. What you're doing now. You could be watching this. You could not be watching this. It doesn't matter. If you are watching this, you need to know that you are the priority. Now, if what we're saying possibly gets you through a rough time, if maybe sometime in the future the channel takes off or whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters is what we're saying now. And what we're saying now in front of this camera about getting through the tough shit in your life. You need to make sacrifices. Sacrifice is the biggest part of it. Because there's always going to be weeds in the garden, and you got to pull them out. And sometimes you got to get rid of the old flowers to make room for the new ones. There's not a lot of room in that garden. So you got to be careful what you're planting in. And another thing is time. Time heals all wounds, and time will breed the best gifts. Yeah. But you're only as much as you invest. Your time is precious. Yeah. And you have to. It is a resource, a fleeting resource. We're choosing this time to put our message out behind the camera. Or in front of the camera. But outside of this, our time is towards school, chasing our dreams through education, or bettering ourselves in the gym, or, you know, reading a book, playing guitar, and things we like to do.
Mm.
That's what our time is allotted into. And the more time you put into something, the more you get back from it. The more skill that you train from putting time in. And, you know, practice. Practice what you're good at. And sometimes you gotta practice what you fucking hate.
Mm.
To get to what you want to do. Sometimes you gotta, you know, you gotta eat like bland and healthy for an entire week. And then you get to that cheat day and it feels so much sweeter. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong. Like, I'm not saying you can't eat healthy and not have your shit taste good.
Oh, yeah.
But there's always going to be that one shitty vegetable. But you know it's good for you.
Yeah.
You gotta fucking choke that. You gotta drink the bitter medicine.
Yeah.
That's what that is. Because even though in the moment it might taste bad, in the moment it might make you feel shitty, it might suck so bad to drink this medicine. But what do you know? A day later, a week later, you know, a month later, you look back on it thinking, I did it. And I feel better because I did it. Talked a lot about a lot of negative stuff that comes to perseverance. You know, how you gotta sometimes you gotta do some like bad shit. You know, for lack of a better term, you know, boring. You know, stuff that's egregious and arduous tasks that you have to commit to get shit done. And, you know, that's all well and good, but you also have to focus on, you know, staying positive through hard times.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a big thing, you know. And, like, going back to what I was saying before, how I kind of, receded into apathy. That's not good either. You know, you have to stay in the moment. You have to allow yourself to feel. You can't remove yourself from the pain just because it hurts. Which I'm still working on not doing that. You know, I'm very much like, other people need me, I need to stay strong, but I keep forgetting about, what do I need? I need to feel. And, you know, I'm not always the best with that. Sometimes I kind of just push my head down and get back to work. Yeah, because it's easy. You know, so it's weird because doing hard shit comes easier to me because I know it's hard and I invite the challenge. But sometimes feeling and letting myself, you know, feel an emotion other than, you know, the anger that keeps me going is what takes work. You know, and that's a big thing for me that I'm still working on and I have to stay conscious of. Yeah. But another thing is staying positive through that hardship. You know, like I was saying before in the last episode where I was like, fell in hard times, I had no money and I needed to pay for a bunch of shit. And I was ready to do what I had to. My family was there to help me, so I didn't have to. You know, rely on the people that care about you because they're there. Like, you know, nobody, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it sure wasn't done by one man. You know, you're not alone. That's a big thing I have to say. You know, you don't have to get through it by yourself. You have people. You have to remember to talk to them, and, you know, hang out with your friends. Especially, this is my stance. You know, as far as breakups go, nothing is better than fucking boys therapy. You break up with your girl, fucking call up your friends and hang out with them. To take your mind off of them. That's what you need to do. That's what worked for me for, like, both of my relationships, which kind of sucks for me, because it was like, number one, the day after I hung out with my friend and I felt better, and two, I ended the relationship at my friend's house. Not in person, but, still. It was like, it was one of those things where I was like, it's done. And then we moved on, and I hung out, and I enjoyed the company of one of my best friends. And when my friends were bummed, I was like, dude, come on. Come hang out at the house. We'll have some fun. Take your mind off it. And you will feel it. It's not like you're not escaping it.
Yeah.
You're just, falling back on your friends.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. Rely on the people around you when you're going through tough shit. And, if you're having, that's what, really just anybody, putting it in a more mundane sense, if you're having trouble, in a certain class and you're having a rough time, your classmates and, tutors and professors are there to provide you with help if you're struggling, A lot of that is taking the initiative to do it yourself, though. Your friends don't know if you're having a shitty day if you don't tell them about it. So you got to talk to people. You got to let them know about what's going on, and maybe sometimes when you're not feeling the best, be it internally or they kind of pick up on it externally. If some bad happens, there will be people in your life that really care about you, and you have to recognize that they're there for you, and you need to fall back on them.
And I really like what you said. Because we're all dependent. We're all no matter if you're just the most independent guru. Everyone's dependent. Where do you get your groceries? From the grocery store,
Yeah.
right? That's just one example. We rely on healthcare with doctors. How can you be of service to others, right?
Yes.
And I was watching this YouTube video. I'm not to bring God into this, but kind of, just the guy was saying how he was just not God in a Christian sense, but God in a higher force sense. It's he just asked the universe. He was like, God, how could I be of service to you? And then through that he had steps of action. He was just all about helping others, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of like you said, if whether you need that helping hand or you're willing to lend that helping hand to someone, you have I think at least you should be willing to. And a lot of times I even find myself doing this, but meditation and just different being in the moment activities really have helped ground myself and not getting sucked into the self-image, because a lot of times we as individuals, no one thinks more about yourself than you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's crazy to me because when we're talking about our own experience and what we're gonna do in the future, the past, what we currently are, it's always so interesting, right? But when others are talking about it, there's maybe there is a high level of interest, but most times, often than not, there really isn't, right? And it's you're more, and this is just human nature, right? This is not a bad thing. This is not a good thing. This is just how it is, We bounce I statements off of each other, and that builds conversation, that builds interaction, that builds bonds, and I'm not saying there's anything bad about that, but kind of to connect that back, it reveals that we care a lot about our self-image, and when we care a lot about our self-image, we have this strong investment into something that is limited, into something that is an idea, right? And something that we have thought of. Even it's a belief, right, in itself, right? It's a story we're telling ourselves. And if we kind of get stuck in that loop of just really overthinking about ourselves, setting these standards that we have to meet, it's going to cause a lot of suffering in our lives, right?
Yeah.
But if we allow ourselves to have that ability and flexibility to change, right, to feel, right, kind of like you were saying, right, instead of using anger as a means to an end, right? I'm not saying that's bad, right? Okay, you're going to use your anger to go in the gym to get a good workout, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just doing that, which is not a bad thing, if you could just be regardless of all means and ends, and just be as that is, right, in the here and now, goals aside, it's a whole different effect. I came home from work and I was the manager's just been really just. I think he's going through some stuff. I think he's demotivated. I don't think he really enjoys work, and what do you know? Energy's contagious. It's rubbing off on me because he's treating me like shit, right? And it's starting to rub off me, and I'm starting to feel frustrated. And I noticed that my mind just constantly rambles on, and the ego loves to complain, right? And when it complains, it becomes stronger, right? And even though that feels good, right, like Superior, it has negative effects on our body. And in our mind, right? But it's very hard because if you try to solve thought with thought, it can work, but it's tough, man, because you're going to want to keep thinking about it. There's this pull, there's this urge inside you to keep thinking about that type of shit, right? And being stuck in that cycle of stream of thought, and like until you take a step back and you just be, right? Whether that be through meditation or like going into the gym, right? Something that, or hanging out with your boys, right? You can really escape the mind and realize, like, oh shit, like that was not a good path I was going down, even though in that moment in time I thought it was. And so perseverance is a big thing that you may need to figure out. You need time to figure it out, right? Perseverance could happen spontaneously, but perseverance is a never-ending battle that is going to happen throughout your life. And if you can take a step back, cut out all the bullshit, right, and develop a clear thought perspective, then you'll be better off.
Yeah. And, like, going back to what you were saying about allowing yourself to feel, you know, like, I said this before, it was like, you kind of, a word appeared in my mind that kind of really put that in perspective. A better way to portray it is, like, as opposed to letting yourself feel, as opposed to defaulting to whatever you normally do, you know? Like, for me, like I said before, it kind of defaults to that anger that I take into the gym. And it's like, I have to bring it back. You know, I have to allow myself to feel. You know, I can't keep... I'm not looking as I'm throwing stuff onto the fire. Just, you know... And sometimes you gotta make sure you're not throwing stuff that matters into the fire. But, you know, you gotta keep going. You know, you gotta rely on the people that are there for you. And I feel like that's a good place to end.
I put my phone on, do not disturb. Don't wanna talk, I don't wanna hear a word. I got these feelings I be feeling inside. Try not to lose